YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back, and today we're taking a very early look at the top free agent quarterbacks in this upcoming 2020 offseason, and I'm going to talk about where their potential landing spots could be. So we're going through 11 quarterbacks, a lot of big names, and there's some sneaky QBs that could be starters next year, actually, and we're going to give two options, two teams for each of those quarterbacks. So some interesting stuff to go over here. Really enjoyed making this video. And right before we get started, patreon.com/thegoathouse. There's extra content there. Playoff predictions, score predictions, 2020 NFL mock drafts, all of that part of one package deal, and all of it updated every single week. Patreon.com/thegoathouse. There's a link towards the top of the description of every video. 40K, that's our subscriber goal. Please help us get there. Trying to get there by 2020. So I really appreciate you by subscribing. Click that like button. Check us out on Twitter. Full NFL content here all year long, not just in season. Phillip Rivers, first quarterback we're talking about. And this was a tough one right off the bat. We're going to look at some of the old guys early on here in the beginning of this video. And originally, I was going to have it was a battle between option A and B was the Chargers and retirement. I thought, his contract's coming to an end. Obviously, we're talking about only free agents in this video. So he's going to be a free agent. And I mean, he's getting up there in age. We can see him really declining now, losing some arm strength, throwing some questionable balls, obviously. But it's come out recently that it sounds like he still wants to play. It really does sound like he wants to play. There's actually something that came up that he said he would be very interested in playing for the Titans, and the Titans actually could be looking for a quarterback. So I went ahead and swapped in the Titans there. Retirement is probably option C. But it's out the door for now because it sounds like he really wants to play. Very competitive dude. I still have the Chargers as option A because I still think, even though he said he would like to play for the Titans, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Titans really want him. I think there'll be a limited amount of teams that actually want him. How much will he be willing to pay for? Will it be worth it for him to play for a cheap contract? I think it's very realistic the Chargers can bring him back for a one-year deal. I think they're the team more likely to pay him the most in that one-year deal. I think they also can go with Tyrod Taylor. I think they could have won a couple more games if Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback. So I think they can bring the both of them back. Monitor the draft, but everyone's got to remember free agency is before the draft, and you don't know what you're going to get. And we're going to be mentioning that a lot throughout this video, I think. I think I am. That people forget that free agency is before the draft. So teams, play it safe. They get their quarterback because they don't know what they're going to get in the draft. You can't predict the draft. You can't be like, all right, my team is taking a quarterback in the draft, so they will not sign a free agent. The opposite happens all the time. They do take a free agent, and they take a quarterback as well. But back to Phillip Rivers. Option A, I think the Chargers could sign him for a one-year deal, have him compete with Tyrod Taylor. It's just good to have him in that organization still. And the Titans are the team to look out for now. I'd say option C, which kind of defeats the purpose of this video because I was going just two options, but I'd probably be talking about option C throughout this video as well. I think could be retirement. We're on to probably the biggest name on this list. That's Tom Brady. And option A, I got the New England Patriots returning, obviously. And option B is retirement. It's hard to see Tom Brady retire, but it could be close to that time. The contract's coming to an end, obviously. And there was talk earlier in the year that he could go to a different team. He's moving out of his house. His trainer's moving, whatever the nonsense was. I just really don't see him playing for another team. There's a part of me that thinks, maybe he wants to prove something, that he can actually do it with another team. I can see him thinking that, and I can see Belichick actually thinking that too. But I just don't see it. I really think he ends up back on the Patriots for another year or two. You look at the rest of this free agency class, and I don't think there's anybody that really fits the Patriots. Maybe there's a couple guys here and there, but they're unlikely to land those guys. But for the most part, it's not really guys that fit their style. And I don't think I like Jarrett Stidham. I don't think he's ready yet. And the same thing goes for the draft. I don't know if they want to go with a rookie. They'll have to trade way up. So and they always want to win. So I'm thinking they have no choice but to go back to Brady for a year. I don't see why they wouldn't want to either way. And I think if he's not on the Patriots, I think he'll want to retire. I just don't see him playing for anybody else. I really don't. If I had to give an option C, if you made me pick another team, like what if those rumors are true? He's off to another team. I'm thinking Tampa Bay. You go retire in Florida. You end your career in Florida. Sounds pretty nice. That's really not why, though. I mean, Arians is there. I think it's a good fit. I think Arians could be pushing for a guy like this. And, that you go from Winston to Tom Brady. Yeah, Winston's got that big playability, but Tom Brady, can definitely limit the turnovers, obviously, and take the Bucs to the next level. I think Arians would be a fan of that. So that would be option C. But there's a reason I do two options here because I think those are the more likely ones, obviously. Next, we're talking about another old guy, another old man here, Drew Brees. And to some people, this might shock you, but some people might be on the same page. I think the option A, I don't think he should retire. It's kind of prediction A, I guess you can think about it. I think he could retire because it just feels like yesterday he was a free agent. I mean, he was before last season, so it wasn't that long ago. And they chose to sign him on a 2-year deal. There was other teams that were going to be interested very heavily if he wasn't going to re-sign with the Saints, but he told those teams no, he's re-signing with the Saints. They're just kind of waiting to make a deal. They chose to do a 2-year deal. And he kind of took somewhat of a discount on top of it, hometown discount, I guess. I think they signed that 2-year deal for a reason. I guess you can't predict the future. But they bring back Teddy Bridgewater for a 1-year deal. I think the plan was originally for Drew Brees to retire at the end of this year. Things definitely can change. Obviously, if they win the Super Bowl or not, that can shift some things. But I think option A for Drew Brees at the moment is to retire, and option B is the Saints. And there is no option C, I don't think, because maybe there is. Maybe he wants to play still, but they already made a decision to go out with one of their backups. That's possible, I guess, but I just don't see it. So I think it's retire or with the New Orleans Saints back again. A 1-year deal would make the most sense. But what do you want to take a discount again if he decided to do this again? What would the price need to be for him to actually play? And what do the Saints want to do? We saw how good they were with Teddy Bridgewater as well. So he's only on a 1-year deal. We're going to be talking about him too very soon. That's my two options for the Saints. What if something just popped in my head now? What if there was an option C? What if it was back to the Chargers? People forget that he was on the Chargers, drafted by the Chargers. I don't think that would happen, but that would be something. They could be in the market for a quarterback. That would be something because the Chargers team's good. They have a lot of talent, so this could be the missing piece. That would be wild. This one we're going to be real quick, and I apologize for trolling a little bit in the thumbnail. I really apologize. But Dak Prescott will be a Dallas Cowboy. 100%. Option A, option B, Dallas Cowboy. There is no option C. I see people on Twitter, there's fan bases that think all of a sudden, because they see the news that still the Cowboys and Dak Prescott can't work out a deal. Every now and then we hear they're close to a deal. It doesn't happen. And there's people on Twitter and around the league fan bases that think that their team is getting Dak Prescott next year. No, you are not. You are not getting Dak Prescott. The Dallas Cowboys are keeping Dak Prescott. They might not work out a deal. I'm not guaranteeing a deal here. People forget about the franchise tag. You think they're just not going to franchise tag Dak Prescott? They will if they have to. If it makes them unhappy, they will still do it because then they're going to have to dig into free agency. You don't want that when Dak is getting better and better. He's going back to the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's a contract or not, and it's understandable why they have contract issues. It's very understandable, and it starts with the Cowboys. I don't want to say lowballing him because it sounded like they gave him a pretty good offer, but then Dak kind of wanting more, and people kind of laughed at that offer, which was a little much. But right now people aren't laughing too much because he's playing at the best level he's ever played at. He's getting better. At the same time, the market is going up for players. The market's really going up for quarterbacks, to be specific. So he kind of wants that big deal, and maybe that could be going up for him. And the Cowboys don't really want to dish it off that easily, but I think they will eventually. And another thing is the Zeke contract. They gave him $90 million, $90 million for a running back. Don't know about that deal, but that kind of caused a little delay. I mean, they gave other guys deals too, obviously. And that kind of caused a setback in the Dak deal. So, but worst case scenario for the Cowboys, he's franchise tagged. He's your quarterback next year. I don't see him doing this, but if he's franchise tagged, maybe he holds out. We see other players holding out. I don't think Dak's that type of guy. We'll see. I could be wrong, but it's a guy you got to respect too. I don't think he'll be doing that. But even so, that's the very worst case scenario. He's still on the Cowboys, but he's sitting out. They don't want anybody else to have this guy. They want to work out a deal. But I just don't think that'll happen. He'll be on the Cowboys next year, so we can rip that one out of the way. Teddy Bridgewater, Saints is option A. Like I said, kind of basing it, things will change, but basing it off of what the deal was for Drew Brees. And the plan all along was for him to retire, but things can change, and then Teddy Bridgewater to be their quarterback, and that's why they brought him back for another year. But that could cause some other questions. Why a year? Why not lock him up? He never really got a fair trial. I guess a fair for him and fair for the Saints, because really it was an unknown. And maybe Drew Brees can change his mind, so they didn't want to lock Teddy up on anything. If Drew Brees changes his mind, they want to bring him back. That could be a sign that Brees could come back. But they love the way that Teddy played. I love the way he played. They won games with him. He's got a. I was higher on Teddy Bridgewater pre-draft than anybody in the world. This was my guy, so I believe in him very much. So I think the Saints will too. I think he could be their quarterback. And I thought it was hysterical at the time, and it's even more hysterical now that there was a group of Saints, not even Saints fans, a group of people that thought Taysom Hill was going to be their actual starting quarterback. Taysom Hill can ball, don't get me wrong, but they thought he was going to be their actual quarterback, not Teddy Bridgewater, when Brees was done or if he came out or anything. And we see that was proven wrong real quick. I guess things can change. What if they can't get Teddy Bridgewater back? And that's why option B is there. The Miami Dolphins, his hometown in Miami. He could go back. If you remember in free agency, he had a meeting in Miami with the Dolphins staff, front office, coaching staff, and that was strongly considered. And we don't know for a fact if this is a fact or not, but we've heard that he turned down more money from the Dolphins to go to the Saints, and he got a pretty hefty one-year deal from the Saints. Good thing they did it. So that is interesting, and he only signed a 1 year, so the plan was maybe he doesn't want to go to the Dolphins yet. It's a little bit of a mess. Maybe I can go next year to play for my hometown team there. So that is definitely an option still, a strong option, because the Dolphins got a load of draft picks, and you could say, well, Dolphins are going to draft a quarterback. We see what happened with Tua now. He got hurt, and the Dolphins are not supposed to have the first pick. They could still. Joe Burrow will go first pick. The first quarterback off the board, he will go. Do the Dolphins want to go Justin Herbert, or would you rather use those picks on what you need? Offensive line, pass rush, and then offensive weapons. So you can use your 3 first-round draft picks and more on that. I'm a fan of building the offensive line throughout the rest of the rounds. They have the ammo to do that, second, third round. So then get a polished quarterback and a young quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater and build around that. And you're looking good, right? You're looking good to start next year if you do the thing right. So I think that is a legitimate option, and it's even more of an option that the Dolphins could be looking at a free agency quarterback now that Tua got hurt, not because I'm specifically saying they were going for Tua. I'm not, actually saying that was the guy they were getting, but think about what happened. That guy getting hurt boosted Joe Burrow's stock even more. Even if he was already the number 1 overall player, it boosted his stock because it is a fight over the one top-tier quarterback. Herbert is pretty close, but I don't consider him. There was a little bit of a gap in between Burrow. Tua had their own level, and there's a little bit of a gap with Justin Herbert with him next. But I love his arm talent, love Herbert's arm talent. But I think the Dolphins are more likely to push for something like this. But can they win the fight over the Saints? And that brings up another crazy debate with Drew Brees. What if Drew Brees wants to come back, but they're afraid to lose long-term Teddy Bridgewater to the Dolphins? What kind of chaos will go on? They may have to choose between the two, which I guess brings us back to maybe Drew Brees, if not retiring, could actually play elsewhere, which is wild to think about. So the whole Saints situation is going to be interesting this year. And we'll talk about Taysom Hill now. I don't really consider him a top free agent quarterback, but he's definitely an interesting one. And we see again option A, the Saints. If Drew Brees is gone, I think Teddy and Taysom Hill will be their quarterback. They're 2 quarterbacks. I think Taysom Hill he's different than just a quarterback for the Saints. He's a key part of their team. So I think they'll be bringing him back for that reason. I don't think any team will be signing him to starts. I wouldn't be a fan of that, signing him to start. But I think option B, the only other team that would be higher on him than most would be the Matt Nagy Bears, and that's if Nagy's still around, which I expect him to be. Just the style of offense he runs, and he wants to be able to run the ball with his quarterback more. We've seen them trying options, so I mean Hill could fit that a little more. Trubisky ran pretty well a year ago, and something happened, a couple injuries, I guess, set that back, and that really set the whole offense back. So they could be going for a guy like this, not really to start, but I guess if I had to put money on it, what other team besides the Saints would want him to start? I don't think the Saints even do. I don't think any team does, but it would be the Bears, would be my bet if I had to. But yeah, let's say that a team like the Bears did this. Expect them to draft a quarterback to go along with the competition of Taysom Hill, Mitchell Trubisky, and the drafted quarterback, which would be a second to a mid-round pick. So these are really only two teams I consider. I just expect him back on the Saints, as that weapon he is. So I thought not a top free agent quarterback, but a very interesting one. The Saints in general are interesting. Let's talk about, speaking of the Bears, let's talk about Marcus Mariota. I got the Bears as option A for Marcus Mariota, and option B is the Chargers. You'll say Phillip Rivers is gone, whether it's retired or not. The Chargers can have an open competition between Tyrod Taylor and Marcus Mariota. We see them, they're trying to kind of push. You kind of can see it. You kind of can see it here and there this year. They're pushing for that quick offense. A lot of, quick, it's almost like a one-step drop and just to throw the slant or throw the quick out, the back shoulder. They're trying to go to that, and Phillip Rivers, you can't really blame him. I mean, it's his mentality and why he will be in the Hall of Fame. He tries to make that big extra play, and it kind of costs them. So they kind of could want that Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Mariota type, which I think it'll be Tyrod Taylor, but you also want to have another option there. And Marcus Mariota, I don't think will be on the Tennessee Titans next year. I think they'll want either Tannehill, or we'll talk about Tannehill, or somebody else as their starter. We'll talk about that down the line here. I don't think he's back. I know he's a fan favorite there. He's a very likable guy. But I think he wants to play. Obviously, he wants to start. And the Bears, we didn't really talk about my option A, the Bears here. It makes a lot of sense because he fits that Nagy system. Mariota is one of the better running quarterbacks in football. It's kind of calmed down a little bit, though, since he had a couple injuries. He had a nerve injury, which is a little scary. But he still runs. Just not as much. He still runs. And now he's getting this big break. Look at his break he's getting here, this rest he's getting. So he definitely could be a runner again. He'll definitely fit the Matt Nagy offense. And Mark Helfrich is actually the offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. Who is Mark Helfrich? Well, he's the Bears offensive coordinator right now, but he was also the offensive coordinator of the Oregon Ducks when Mariota was there, and then later named the head coach of the Oregon Ducks. Similar offense, knows Mariota very well, and that could be the key to bringing him there to compete with Mitchell Trubisky. It's a guy you can sign on a one-year deal. Let's make sure you're healthy. Let's make sure you're good to go. It's a little sad what happened to Mariota because he was a damn good quarterback out of Oregon. And look at his first 2 years. Look at his second year specifically. He was damn good. It was looking like a future all-pro quarterback at that point. So it's a little unfortunate. But I really like the Bears. And I've been saying this it's got to be going on a year now that Mariota could be a Bear in the future. And I'm still sticking towards that. But we talked about the Chargers as well. Do I have an option C? Let's see. Do I have an option? I don't think he goes back to the Titans. I really like these two teams for him. I don't really see any other options here. I don't. It would be tough. Maybe if it was backup roles, it could be pretty much anywhere. Maybe the Panthers if they move on from Cam Newton. He can back up maybe Kyle Allen, who they have there, compete for a starting job. It's the only thing I can think of there. And we'll talk about the other Tennessee Titan quarterback. It's Ryan Tannehill, and I have option A, the Titans. The Titans are liking him right now. There's still a lot to be played. They want to see more from him, but they like what he's seeing. The playbook's opening because of him, and his game is opening because of him. We're seeing stuff that we haven't seen from him ever. We've seen him on the Miami Dolphins. We haven't really seen much of that. So I think the Titans I think it's very likely they sign him on a one-year deal, and they can draft one as well. And that could be very interesting, or they can look at the Phillip Rivers route like we talked about that in the beginning of the video. But I think he'll be back in Tennessee. And it really depends on what the rest of the season, how it goes. I guess an option B is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to be in the market for a quarterback. They could look at the draft. They're not supposed to be. They could be, but not supposed to be picking the top tier of the draft. So we'll see the route they go. They won't be able to get Joe Burrow, is my point. And they could bring in a guy like this, a guy that is a step down from Winston in terms of big playability, but not a big step down. We see him start to open things up, but he's a big step up in terms of taking care of the ball, being more of a game manager at time. And I think that's exactly, Bruce Arians will probably want to go bigger, or he'll want to draft his his quarterback for him to groom, but it's got to be the right guy. Like I said, where they're picking, they're pretty close to the top. Maybe they can make a trade. They drafted pretty well in defense last year. But Tannehill's a guy that kind of fits in there where it'll be safe, but he also can make some of those big plays. He can have some of that big playability. So the Buccaneers are the option B that came to my head right away. So Titans and Buccaneers. I don't really like, in terms of fit, the actual system, I don't really like any of the other teams. In terms of fit, another team actually would be the Dolphins. I just don't see them going back to the Dolphins, and I don't think any of you do either. So really, these are the only two teams that I see. As we're sitting, again, a lot more. We're in Week 12 of the NFL. We need to see more. But I think it's looking like the Titans can bring them back. Could be a 1-year deal, could be a 2-year deal. I don't think any more than that. Should be interesting. Next quarterback we're talking about we got two more for you guys, is Kyle Allen. And a little boring here because I got two teams that pop up, but it's really one team. It's the same team. Option A, Carolina Panthers. Option B, Carolina Panthers. I thought about this one. I considered other teams that he possibly can go to, but I just came back to the Panthers. I just really don't see him elsewhere. Maybe they want to bring Cam Newton. Maybe the decision at the end is, okay, Cam's going to be our starter. That very well can be the decision. And Kyle Allen maybe could be a little upset. Maybe he wants to start somewhere. I just don't know. I don't really see any other team having that trust in him like the Panthers do. Only the Panthers know about him. Only the Panthers pretty much know. Other teams will take risks, but then they rather take risks on some of the other guys or some of the first-round quarterbacks. I like Kyle Allen. I like his mechanics. I like his arm strength. I think he's got a bright future. The Panthers, I think, will, kind of going back to my point, that they're the only ones that will trust him, and that means other teams could sign him or try to sign him, but the Panthers are the only ones I think that would, dish out not a lot of money, but the most money out of the teams there. Just because they know what they got from Kyle Allen, it's just too much of a risk for other teams in their mind, possibly. So I just don't see I see him either as the Panthers starter next year or the Panthers backup. It'd be interesting to see what kind of contract he gets, though. That is something that's very interesting. Do they still want him to prove it? Do they try to get him? Do they try to snake him a little bit? Do they try to get him a long-term deal that's cheaper because his market value is pretty cheap right now? Depends on how much he believes in himself, which I would think it's high, but hopefully he has a good agent because that could be a tricky one there. But I just see him on the Panthers either way. And we're talking about one more sneaky quarterback here. Actually, we got two more. I lied. We got two more. One more sneaky quarterback before the toughest one to decide between. But Nick Mullens looked actually pretty good last year at times for the Niners. Young quarterback. Everything looked right for him. It looked like he had a lot of potential. I think the Niners could be wanting him back as Jimmy G's backup. That's the duo. That's all they need. Bethard, I wasn't a fan of pre-draft. I was mind blown when they drafted him as early as they did. He's not the answer. There was rumors they were trying to trade him at the trade deadline. I think they want their duo, Jimmy G and Nick Mullens, to be, kind of the guys for the San Francisco 49ers. I think they have trust in those guys. They have trust in Jimmy G staying healthy, but just the what if. You have to be safe. The Niners don't need a whole bunch. So, let's make sure we lock him up. If you're spending a little extra than you want to, it's not a big deal. I think it's a darn good backup quarterback, a lot of potential. We see the Buccaneers pop up as option B again. We've seen it before. A little bit of a wild card. I can see Bruce Arians, maybe not wanting to go to the draft, but at the same time, because he doesn't have a top pick, or could be close to a top pick, kind of talked about this already, but wanting a young quarterback that he can groom, but they want to win now. That's the Arians mentality. And they were in some games this year they could have won. They could have changed the season completely. So let's get a guy that can groom and that has some polish to him and that learned under that great Kyle Shanahan offense there. So I think Nick Mullens would make a lot of sense for Arians. If they went that route, they would also draft one. It wouldn't be the lock of Nick Mullens starting at quarterback. But I think the Niners will really want him to be their backup. But ultimately, he has the choice if he thinks he can start somewhere. Obviously, that's what we have to figure out. Free agency time. But yeah, there is one more quarterback I want to talk about. It is the toughest, by far the hardest quarterback to figure out where he will go next year. And it's a big name here, and it's Jameis Winston. And it's so tough to figure out where they can go. And the Dolphins are option A for me, and the Broncos are option B. And you could say that the Buccaneers could bring him back for a year, and that's probably option C right now. I think Arians, he made some comments in the offseason that were pretty firm, pretty if this guy turns the ball over, I mean, he wasn't going to be happy. He was going to move on, and he's turning the ball over more than ever right now. So I think they'll move on, and figure out where he's going to go is tough because some teams won't want that he's capable of turning the ball over. Why the Dolphins option A? I talked about a little early on this video is people expect teams to draft a quarterback. So most fans are probably like, all right, the Dolphins are going to draft the quarterback. That's going to be their guy. And I'd say they're going to draft a quarterback. But I'd say not so fast. Teams always, free agency's first, the draft is second. You don't know what's going to happen in the draft. You don't know who's going to go where, who's going to trade up ahead of you. You have to get your quarterback. And they do have Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen. They're not trusting Josh Rosen too much. I think he's just going to be their backup for a while unless they can trade him. Another Cardinals-type move, another Dolphins-Cardinals-type trade. Don't think so, though. Fitzpatrick, he has another year, but they can get out of that deal for next to nothing, actually, after this year. And Jameis Winston could be the kind of that bridge quarterback, could be that 1-year deal, and they could actually, and then draft one, but then they can actually look to next year's drafts as well. Maybe it's a little better to them. Teams plan ahead of time as well. You can't predict what's going to happen, but it's okay. We get Winston, let's say he turns the ball over still. He's not changed at all. We're going to get another top pick and get a chance to take another quarterback. Or if he plays good, because we know the potential he has, maybe he needs a change of scenery. He has that big playability. So maybe he turns things around. Maybe he figures it out. Maybe that's our quarterback. In the meantime, they can pick up the pieces around him. They have the cap space. They have the draft picks. You need more than just quarterback. You need offense line, receiver, running back. Obviously, pass rush, huge one. So they can grab that quarterback, build around him. I think option A, if we're talking about teams, so if it's the logo of the team there on the left next to Jameis Winston, the Dolphins, option A would say Teddy Bridgewater. Option B would say a guy like Jameis Winston. But again, Teddy Bridgewater, is he more likely to end up in the Saints? I think Teddy Bridgewater's the biggest one here, I think. The most interesting one, him or Drew Brees. And then, so the Dolphins are a team to look out for to grab a free agent quarterback because they don't know what's happening in the draft. We see where they sit in the draft right now. Things will change. Option B is the Broncos. It's a tough one to see because last year they go Case Keenum. They pay him a bunch of money. Now they trade for Joe Flacco. They're paying him a bunch of money. Now do they really go 3 years in a row doing this nonsense to Jameis Winston? I can see it. Maybe it's not super likely, but I can see it. And they don't have to give him a lot of money this time around. This third year doing this. It could be a 1-year deal. And the Broncos are kind of missing that big play ability when they have that big play receiver in Courtland Sutton. They have the big play running backs. They want that big play ability down the field. Courtland Sutton could be Jameis Winston's Mike Evans. And that's what Elway and that's what the guys want there. So they can bring him in and have him compete with. And Drew Lock could be the guy. He could be the guy. I like Drew Lock. But they can have Winston compete with Joe Flacco and Drew Lock. And they also can draft one. There's a couple that I think fit what their ideal quarterback in the draft. Or again, they could go Drew Lock. He was a second-round pick, so we'll see what. I think he'll get some playing time later this year. So Jameis Winston is a tough one. Again, it is possible that Tampa can bring him back for a year and possibly draft one with him. That's very possible. Just the way I've taken it from Arians, they may just want to move on. If they can get him cheap, that's fine. But he may want to change the scenery too because he's a confident person that you got to respect. And, his attitude, he wants to win. He wants to make the big play. So we'll see. The Dolphins are an interesting team because they can definitely get that guy just in case they can't get that guy in this year's draft. And it could be more than a year plan here. But at the same time, if you get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, and you do the thing right, if you draft and do free agency right, which is a lot, especially the draft. It's one of the best, maybe the best offensive weapon draft class of all time, and they're ready to play now. You do this right, you can win some ball games. You can win some ball games doing this. So it should be very, very interesting. So let me know your guys' thoughts here. Of another interesting video coming tomorrow, actually, is draft fits. I have one draft fit. You get a sneak peek at the thumbnail there. One draft fit that makes the most sense for each NFL team. Doesn't necessarily have to be first-round picks. It could be pretty much anybody. A lot of fun making the graphics on that video, thinking that one up. So I'm going to really enjoy recording that. So a lot of interesting videos this week. Really enjoying it. So hopefully you can join us for that. Hopefully you can check out and join us for all of our other NFL videos. Not just in season, but even in the off season. In season, we got the videos like these, power rankings, recaps, predictions, all kinds of predictions. Off season, draft, free agency coverage. We never stop here at the Goat House. We got all the NFL content here. So please subscribe. Please click that like button. Thank you for joining us here. Thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.